Hey guys, I'm Ollie Zaldestani, and I'm here with Wes Nichols. Wes, thank you for joining me.
Of course.
Today I'll be picking your brain a little bit on fracking and its climatic impacts. So just to give our listeners a little bit of background here, what exactly is fracking?
So, hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking, is a technique used to extract natural gas and oil trapped in deep underground rock formations, often shale. Although the method was first developed in the 1940s, it became widely used in the 2000s with advances in technology. High-pressure fluids composed of water, chemicals, and sand are injected to a well bore. The pressure creates tiny fractures in the rock, and the sand particles stay behind to hold the cracks open once the pressure is released. This allows the trapped oils and natural gases to freely flow up the well to the surface for capture.
That's interesting. I just don't understand why people are so up in arms about this. I know the majority of natural gas and oil deposits are located underground, so what's the big deal? What's such a problem with fracking?
Yeah, there are just so many concerns that are related to fracking. One of the biggest is water contamination. The fracking fluid contains a mix of water, chemicals like hydrochloric acid and muriatic acid, and if the well casing fails or the wastewater isn't handled properly, those chemicals can leak into underground water and drinking supplies. When these chemicals leak into water supplies, it lowers the pH of soil and water. This makes life inhabitable for many aquatic organisms. On top of that, when acid enters soil or water, they dissolve metals that normally stay locked in the ground. Common metals that are released are aluminum, lead, arsenic, mercury, and iron, making water unusable.
That's interesting. Have you come across any specific instances where this has been recorded?
In my past research, I found a study focused on pollutants related to hydraulic fracturing. The team analyzed the chemical components of underground water sources near fracking sites. Water samples were taken at various depths, and laboratory tests were conducted to detect chemicals used in the fracking process, such as toxic metals and organic compounds. The study found that chemicals from fracturing fluids had infiltrated underground water sources, with contamination observed in water samples from various depths. pH levels in some water sources were significantly altered, indicating chemical reactions caused by fracturing fluids. The contamination was not limited to the immediate vicinity of the fracking site. Chemicals were detected in more distant water sources, suggesting widespread infiltration.
Outside of water-based pollution, how else might people be impacted by the implications of fracking?
Hydraulic fracturing has also been linked to seismic activity. When we fracture the rocks, we inject a mixture of water, sand, and chemicals into rock formations at a high pressure to cause fractures within the earth as deep as 15,000 feet underground and even deeper. This poses a risk of inducing seismic activity. The fracking itself doesn't directly cause seismic activity. Other factors in the process contribute to the seismic activity, such as the deep disposal of the wastewater underground. The wastewater in fracking are not strong enough to cause an earthquake that can do much damage, but places where the wastewater has been disposed have seen increased seismic activity. When wastewater is disposed in injection wells, it can cause seismic activity by increasing pressure on faults or creating new ones. Beyond fracking itself, oil and gas extractions in general lead to spill risks. Oil spills can happen during drilling, transportation, or storage. When oil reaches water or wetlands, it kills wildlife, damages ecosystem, and ruins local economies. Even wells that were drilled years ago can still cause problems. If they aren't maintained or sealed correctly, they can leak oil or gas into the environment after production ends.
I understand what you're saying, but fracking has also brought jobs and new infrastructures to many small communities. I mean, take the small Argentine town of Anejo, for example. It's about 1,000 kilometers southwest of Buenos Aires. Fracking has bolstered this small economy. It shows that fracking can lead to economic growth beyond the extent of just the oil and gas industry. For instance, take the experience of a small mechanic, Fabio Javier Jimenez. He told the BBC when he came to Anejo, he was happy to service 1 or 2 trucks a day. Then he started servicing 10 vehicles a day, and now he's servicing 20 vehicles a day. This is thanks to the drastic increase in workers commuting from the city to Anejo, along with trucks moving around extract from Anejo to the city and other parts of Argentina. Furthermore, the chief economist at the Imperia Consultancy, Nicolas Cadano, says that fracking in Vaca Muerta, the region where Anejo is located, is 3 to 4 times more cost efficient than any other region in the country.
Yes, it's impossible to deny there are short-term benefits, but the long-term issues are detrimental. Fracking is one of the most methane-intensive forms of fossil fuel extraction,
Is that right? What's so significant about methane?
and methane has 80 times the heating power than carbon dioxide. This makes fracking a major climate accelerator.
I see. How might this apply directly to the town of Anelo?
Vaca Muerta sits in a low-income region of Patagonia. Companies love it because land is cheap, regulations are weaker, and communities have less political power to resist. There have been 3,358 wells implemented, and here's the climate math. The drilling and fracking of a single well releases from 400 to 510 tons of CO2 approximately, just in its initial phase.
Wow, that seems like an awful lot.
Multiply that by the 3,358 wells, you get from 1.3 million tons of CO2 in the lower end to 1.7 million tons before the wells even start producing. And that doesn't include methane leaks over the well's lifetime, which can multiply the climate impacts that we're planning over. Methane is the core problem because it escapes during drilling, piping, venting, storage, and transportation. It's invisible, odorless, and incredibly powerful. Satellite studies over Patagonia show large methane plumes coming directly from Vaca Muerta's well paths. This means that each new well doesn't just emit CO2, it locks in decades of near-term planetary warming. The environment becomes more fragile and communities already living with drought, heat, and instability are pushed closer to climate vulnerability. The social costs fall hardest on those with the least power. Companies deliberately choose lower income regions because they're cheaper to operate in and easier to politically influence. Meanwhile, the oil extracted from Vaca Muerta is transported long distance to wealthier markets, adding more greenhouse gases and sending the profits away from the region. This increases the environmental injustice. Companies pay the costs, and the corporations take the profits. Residents report constant noise, truck traffic, flaring at night, and land degradation. Cultural practices, especially among indigenous Mapuche communities, are disrupted as traditional lands become industrial grids. Living near fracking sites is linked with serious health risks. Residents commonly experience chronic headaches, asthma and respiratory issues, chronic fatigue, and higher hospitalization rates for heart and lung conditions. For pregnant people, studies show a higher risk of birth defects, low birth weight, and preterm birth. Fracking brings temporary jobs, but the long-term economic picture is unstable. The fracking hits local families very hard. The agriculture and livestock suffer from water and soil pollution. Public health costs rise, and property values fall near industrial zones. Vaca Muerta's economy becomes tied to global oil prices, creating dependency.
I did come across this clip from Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2020 regarding fracking specifically and its effects on climate change. So just highlighting that and seeing that there really are politicians out there willing to make a change and put their best foot forward.
Fracking itself is responsible for the largest rise in greenhouse gas emissions on the planet right now. We have over 700 frack gas power plants and infrastructure projects that are being proposed for this United States. Those power plants will last 30 to 40 years. That means addicting us to 30 or 40 more years of burning the worst fuel that we can develop.
Also, here's a clip from a Complex News video titled, "How Your Vote Can Directly Impact Climate Change," showing that this view is not unpopular.
And a survey of millennials from around the world found that more than 9 out of 10 of us, 91%, understand that humans are responsible for our changing environment. Why is this so important? Well, because we are a generation that overwhelmingly believes that climate change is impacted directly by our choices, we are also likely to embrace solutions that will actually work. Even young people who identify as Republican are much more supportive of clean energy like wind, more firmly against expanding fossil fuel extraction, and more concerned about the lack of protection for the natural world than older members of the GOP. Young voters of any party are twice as likely as older ones to care deeply about the environment. In a Pew Research Center survey from this year, 2/3 of people between 18 and 29 said protecting the environment should be a top priority for the federal government. So it only makes sense that because we have the strongest feelings about environmental issues, we want those concerns to be reflected in what our elected officials actually do.
It seems as though the best way for us to limit and mitigate fracking is to continue voting against policies that support it, both at the local, federal, and even international level. As long as we have consistency and continue to elect officials that will enact this policy, climate change due to methane emissions will drastically decrease.
Yes, the best way to get heard is through lobbying, protesting, and most importantly, voting.
Thank you all for tuning into our podcast, and remember to go out and vote.